Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to this 27th episode of season 13 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. This is the only weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalog, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. Today's bonus episode is a fantastic chat that I had with another artist who I was fortunate to see perform down at the Tom Petty weekend in Gainesville. Robin Vincent, whose band is Robin Shakedown, was one of the most vibrant, energetic, and very, very cool acts from the weekend. And I had to reach out to see if she'd be willing to talk to me about her love for Tom and his music. Subsequently, I found and fell in love with her brilliant EP, Floor Goddess, which is an epic roller coaster of melody, hooks, but emotion and righteous anger. So we end up talking about Robin's foundational love for Tom's music, how she constructs her set lists, especially the one for the weekend down in Gainesville, the way her band came together for that event. We talk about, well, I tell Robin my interpretation of how she holds her guitar when she's performing versus how Shine holds her guitar. And we had a bit of a laugh about that. And we talk about identity and the pressure of having to play the game in society to fit in. And we go deep into Floor Goddess, where the songs come from, where Robin drew her inspiration from, and how she built the feel and the specific sonic palette for this album. We also touch on Shadows and Sun, which is Robin's fantastic new video for a completely re-recorded version of a song that she wrote in response to Georgia repealing laws that were designed to protect trans and other non-binary kids who were figuring out or who had already figured out and needed support with working through their identity. So there's a link in the episode notes to that video, and I encourage you all to go give it a watch. It's really, really good. And then also there's a link in the episode notes to Bandcamp for Floor Goddess and the rest of Robin's work. There's another couple of EPs you should also check out, because I always tell you at the end of the episodes, right? Go support local artists. A really good way of supporting indie artists is by buying their songs and their albums from Bandcamp, because Bandcamp actually gives them most of the money. Well, I think that's enough preamble. Let's get into the full amble. I don't know what you get preamble. What's after? Is it amble? It's probably just amble, isn't it? Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with the incredible Robin Vincent.
Tom Petty, Tom Petty Project, Tom Petty, hey, Tom Petty Project.
Okay, well, you just told me that we were kind of kicking around offline here that you are moving or moved to Brooklyn, but that's
Yes,
not where you're from originally. Tell me
that is
about
not.
where you grew up, because you're a Southern girl, right?
I am a Southern girl. I grew up right here in Atlanta, Georgia. So I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia. My
Yeah.
my physical being is in Atlanta, Georgia. We and by we I mean myself and my fiance Marissa have kept a place here in Atlanta, and we've lucked into an affordable place in New York as well that lets us kind of split our time between the two places.
Yeah.
So that is when it's the holidays time and your family guilts you if you're not there, you have a really, really cheap place to stay at home away from family if you need to be. And if you're, needing to be elsewhere for the holidays, you can be elsewhere for the holidays. So it's the
Yeah.
best of all worlds.
And how's Brooklyn? Do you enjoy it?
It's such a big place, Kevin. It's such a big place, and it's so busy.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how familiar you are with the city, but it is, there's no way to really kind of orient yourself in Brooklyn like there is in Manhattan. Because all the streets, like, they go every which way,
Right.
and you kind of base everything based on the subway line. I feel like it's so big and varied that there is a clear gentrification front, and I'm not sure where we fall, which side of the gentrification front we
Right.
fall on, but I'm pretty sure we are before it, which is a good place to be, but it also kind of makes us the gentrifiers.
Oh, jeez. That's
You
a
know?
realization, though. I mean, I think that's something
It
that.
is.
I mean, look, I'm an English person living in Canada, right? So there's definitely
Sure.
there's a colonial tension there that I definitely am aware of, and it's sort of you sort of recognize it and make sure that you're on the right side of the Social
You
line,
gotta,
if not the
yes,
gentrification line, right?
just make sure that you're, using the local services the same as everybody else.
Of course, of course. Okay, so growing up, what was music like for you at home? Like, what did you grow up listening to? Did you have musical parents, siblings? What was the environment like that you developed in?
I had a musical mother, and I had a non-musical father and a non-musical brother as well.
Right.
But my mom is and continues to be extremely musical, and really the only big musical influence I had growing up. She could do this thing where she could hear a song and then play it on piano, which was, I didn't realize at the time that that was like a cool thing. I just kind of inherited that. So I was able to do that not on piano, but on guitar.
Right.
Um, what she actually gave me more than anything was access to this place called Eddie's Attic, which is I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a
No.
it's a music venue down here in Atlanta, and it is where all the queer women would come and they would play their acoustic guitars. It's where the Indigo Girls got a lot of their start. It's
Oh,
where,
wow.
a
Okay.
a lot of a lot of, acts like that kind of concentrated and played a lot. And my mom was working as a publicist at the time for one of the bands that would come through Eddie's Attic a lot. So as a result, I would hang out there all the time as like a 3 to 5 year old, which I didn't realize was like an especially cool thing. But no, when you have like a 3 to 5 year old hanging out at a music venue, every weekend, I think it leaves an imprint on you.
Yeah. When,
And that's a lot of where that influence came from.
but it's that thing of, I think that it's funny, right? Because I talk to a lot of artists who they have that experience where they were sort of just immersed in it, almost up to you get thrown in the deep end, you sink or swim. And of course, if you've got that musical aptitude, you have the ear, then you are gonna swim. But I do speak to a lot of people too who, yeah, it always fascinates me when people grew up with no music in the house or no focus on music in the house. I think, okay, well, that just proves that music's just in there, right? Like it is in there and it will come out if it's in there,
Absolutely. Sure. And there is, it is surprising when you meet people who are some of like the most musically apt people you'll ever meet in your life. And where did it come from?
Yeah.
Nobody knows where it came from because you look at their childhood and there's nothing there.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that as we get into songwriting and the EP that we're going to talk about
Of
is,
course.
anytime anyone asks you as a musician, as a songwriter, well, where does that come from? You're like, I don't know. I don't, they turn up sometimes and sometimes you have to work really hard and pull them out. But sometimes it comes from
People
somewhere else, right?
say,
Yeah.
like, it's the famous thing that Tom Petty said. He would pull them out of the air.
Yeah.
It wasn't him writing them.
And boy, did he. I mean, some of the
He
stuff that,
pulled
again,
them.
yeah. So what was your exposure to Petty then? Like, because I know that we talked very, very shortly at the Tom Petty weekend, which is where we met, and I saw your
We
fantastic set, and we're
did.
going to get into that.
Oh,
But
shucks.
you sort of said to me, I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. So when I pitched coming onto the podcast, it was a no-brainer for you. So
Of
where
course.
does your love of Petty come from?
It comes from this, Kevin. I think, I can pinpoint exactly when it was. It was. I recall sitting in the computer room. Okay, I am of the age where your parents would have a computer room,
Yeah.
and I was sitting in the computer room, and I remember having, I think, two CDs in my hand, and one was a Neil Young CD, and one was a Tom Petty CD.
Okay.
And I knew that these were like I was young and these were just like two old guys who played, music that my parents liked. But I thought to myself, wow, the aesthetic of both of these dudes is super cool. I really want to get like super deep into one of them. Which one's it gonna be? And I kind of like flipped a coin and landed on the Tom Petty album. I can't remember
Wow.
which one it was. I think it might have been Full Moon Fever. But then I decided for the rest of I don't know, the next like 5 or 6 years that no matter what I was doing, if it was some kind of menial task that just required me to be listening to something to focus, it would be a furtherment of the Tom Petty discography.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I kept that going in order until I listened to the whole thing in order. And that kind of kicked off this propensity I have now to only listen to artists in chronological order, starting from their first album. Otherwise, it doesn't feel good.
It's a strange thing though, too, because it's funny because I have more or less a similar thing, right? Where I really got into Petty, and I think I've talked about this lots on the show, but like 2012 or something,
Mhm.
I'd done the same thing. I'm like, I fancy deep diving because you do that as a music fan. I'm going to deep dive. Petty, I know a few songs of his. He seems pretty cool. And then you get into it, and you like album after album, you think, holy crap, this guy's just good. And then you get to Wildflowers, and I was like, okay, this is just a different level than
This
anything I
is
was
not
expecting.
fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, you don't realize how many of your favorite songs in the whole world are written by Tom Petty until you
Yeah.
start getting into them. And then you realize, oh my God, it's like half of them.
And my wife, because when I got into Petty and started playing it a lot, she said, "Who's this? It's Petty. That one's Petty as well. Don't come around here no more. Sounds so different to Refugee. Sounds so
Yep.
different to I don't know, like yeah, anything off Full Moon Fever. So you've got all those different shades. So once you sort of take that dive, then was there a moment where you sort of remember thinking, okay, this is my guy now. Like I've gone beyond sort of just being into the songs. Now I'm kind of just all in on. Now I'm listening to what Benmont's doing. Now I'm listening to what Mike's doing. Now I'm listening. Now I want the whole package.
That's a great question, Kevin. That I can think of a specific time was when I watched the Bogdanovich documentary.
Oh, yeah,
You know the one, Running
yeah,
Down a Dream? That like I think a lot of it had to do with how it was presented and how it was filmed. Because I'm not someone who's really into film at all. But I think that was a great exposure as far as like, something that has serious overlap with something that I'm into, music and in particular Tom Petty's music. But I don't know, like as soon as I saw that, I really realized, holy shit, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to base my life essentially on what this guy's doing.
right.
Um and I think the actual piece of footage that sealed the deal was 1977, the Rock Palast concert.
Yeah,
I think he does shout on that one, and that the energy
yeah,
that was exhibited on stage was like, this is the coolest thing. There is, nobody will ever argue that that's not the cool. Like, that guy can do anything. He
yeah,
can do any wrong and people will forgive him for it. I mean, that's not entirely true, but that's just kind of the feeling that you get as a child looking at
yeah,
that. Like, I can break free of the chains of society if I
yeah.
just, if I be an artist and be really, really good at it, like this guy is doing.
Well, and that moment that you're talking about, that sort of that footage, and we've all, Petty fans, we've all seen it. It's got that thing where it's almost like he's possessed by something else, right? He's kind of he's still performing and he's got that quality to it, but you can see something else flowing through. It's just so raw. And
It
he's got that
is.
jitterbug thing. He's got that energy about him that you can't really fake that, right? Do you? Because I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know you've probably seen lots and lots of shows too. You can
Sure.
tell when a band's like I hate it when Saskatoon, you're the greatest gig we've ever played. It's like, dude, you're really
No,
Van Halen.
I'm
No, we're
sorry. No,
not.
it's
You don't need to
not.
say that, dude. So, I hate that.
I know, and I agree with that. How can you sit in the audience and take that seriously?
Yeah,
And you understand that the band has to pay the bills, and so they have to pander to some extent.
yeah,
But you're right about believing it. If I believe an artist, then I'm going to enjoy listening to them. And if I don't believe the artist, I'm going to feel like, oh, this is a performance. I will get the same exact thing every single night.
yeah. So let's talk about then. Obviously, then if you're shaping your sort of your ethos on Petty, then that's super cool. So then you get to play at the Tom Petty weekend, and that was my first time down at the weekend this year. What
Yes.
was that like? Because
Okay.
I was talking to Dan Speece, the producer of the Tom Petty weekend, and
Yeah.
he was just going on. He's raving about this chick who plays this heavy metal version of Casadega, dude. You gotta see it. I'm like,
Was
okay,
it?
that sounds interesting.
So I saw that. I saw somebody, and it might have been you who was relaying this information to me.
Okay.
I I would never ever ever describe what we did to
No.
Casadega as metal. And when I saw Dan say that, I I was surprised. I was wondering if he had me, like confused with somebody else
Right.
or anything, but no, apparently a lot of people. So in 2019, I took my band down to play for the first time down at Tom Petty Weekend, which I think was the first Tom Petty Weekend. And we did a version of Casadega that year on stage that I might have been a little I might have been a little overexcited about it
Right.
and a little like yelly and screamy, but I wouldn't have called it metal. And I don't know if you saw the Inside set, but I would
Yeah.
say maybe a grunge version of Casadega, which might be more along the lines of metal where he's going.
Well,
I
yeah, I
just
mean,
didn't want to disappoint anybody by not playing a metal version of it.
but it's, I mean, so, I mean, wearing an Iron Maiden,
I see
randomly wearing an
that.
Iron Maiden shirt today. I'm into metal. I like metal, and I definitely wouldn't call it metal, but I get what he means, though. And especially if you're someone who doesn't maybe necessarily listen to, Dream Theater or anybody else. If you don't listen to that, you might think that it's metal, but it's got the metal attitude. It's got that punk metal in your face. You know what I mean? It's got that. So
I
I kind of get
do.
where it comes from. So
And I do appreciate that because that is what I'm trying to kind of imbue into it. A lot of people play when they think Tom Petty, they think, oh, he's a soft artist. And he is
yeah,
a soft artist, but like, okay, great. So put some of your own stuff into it. Put something interesting into it. Don't just play like every other, cover band does. We're a
yeah.
tribute. Damn it, we're not a cover.
Well, that was at the weekend talking to, friends down there and other people down there. I think if you're a music fan, you do want to see, like, it's okay, it's great when you see a really good cover of Mary Jane's Last Dance or Free Fall or whatever it is, and a bar band, any really good bar band, you can pull that out and you
Sure,
can you can do it. But
of
it's when people
course.
take it and find out where the heart of it is and then put their own skin over top of it, that's
Yes.
when it's interesting, right? And that's when it's
Yes.
engaging. So, and I think you guys did a fabulous job of that. I mean, when you came off stage, that was like, you did Cool Dry Place. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen because I never thought I'd see that song live.
I consider that song to be I call it an inventory song.
Right? Yes.
That song and Johnny Cash, I've Been Everywhere.
Yeah.
Another one. You just list off a whole bunch of things. I love those songs for some reason. I just
Yeah.
love them. They're hilarious to me.
Well, DX7's in old athletic shoes, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to sing that, right? So,
Who wouldn't want to sing about old athletic shoes?
but I did want to tell
Come
you too, though,
on.
because you did Restless as well.
We
And
did.
that's a song. I mean, I did that it was obviously the first season of the podcast. Not one of my favorites on the record, honestly.
Really?
Just because I always felt that it's called Restless and it doesn't feel very restless. It feels a bit
Kind of
constrained and
locked
like they
in.
didn't quite. But then when you see it live, and especially when you put it in the hands of someone who's got that aesthetic, your presentation and your presence on stage, it comes alive as a song then. And I'm sure, like, if I went and saw Tom do it live, it would have been the same thing. But so it was really good to see those deep cuts. So talk to me about when you're putting that set list together for the Tom Petty weekend and there's going to be a bunch of
Yes.
nerds there, Petty nerds.
Yes.
How thrilling is it to say, well, I'm going to do Restless, I'm going to do Cool Dry Place, I'm going to pull out all
It's
these
the
things that no one else is
best.
definitely going to do?
Well, you never know if anybody else is going to do it at Tom Petty Weekend.
True.
It kind of almost becomes like a competition to who can pull out the most obscure Petty song.
Yeah.
And I was not impressed with the selection I saw the first year that we came here.
Right.
Everyone did all of the hits, and you can. How many times can you hear American Girl at
Yeah.
the same concert, the same weekend? It's probably pretty high, but like I didn't want to be just another, artist who covers things like that.
Yeah.
So the first year we did it, I think we did Fault Lines off Hypnotic Eye, and that was about as deep as I cared to get that year.
Wow.
And I always want to play music that people have heard maybe once or twice.
Right.
Like a song that because like I feel like that's what all Tom Petty music is. It's when people listen to it, they've heard every single song that comes up maybe once or twice, and therefore they don't have the opportunity to get sick of it because
Yeah.
it doesn't play in their collective memory all the time. Um, so I don't like to get so deep that it could be something original.
Yeah.
But I do like to get just a little deep. Like uh Big Weekend, I think, is another really good example of a song that is just obscure enough that people have heard it maybe once or twice at a
Yeah.
Tom Petty weekend in the past, but they're not sick of it yet. And I don't think anybody is actually sick of that song.
I mean, how could you be? It's
It's
again,
hilarious.
when in my journey through, as soon when I got to Highway Companion, and of course, Saving Grace is this brilliant, the Green Onions thing, and it's got all that kind of bluesy, ZZ Top thing to it. But when you
Mhm.
get to Big Weekend, it's like, it's just cutting loose and
It's
it's
just
just
country.
freeing. It's
I
just so much
know.
fun, right?
It is.
But you're talking about like, yeah, how many times do you really want to hear American Girl? And as much as that song is brilliant, unless you hear Maggie Clifford sing it, right? And I
Yeah,
know that
unless you
you're
hear
in
an
the room for
interesting
that one.
version of it. I was
Yeah,
in the room for that one. Yeah.
yeah,
And she sings things in a very particular way. And when she sings songs that you don't expect to be sung in that way, in her way, in
yeah.
which she feels at home, magic happens.
So we talked a little bit. You scurried off to get your notes, and I'm just kind of finding my notes here. That I get the sense that you're very meticulous when it comes to
But
that kind of planning and putting things together and making sure, all your ducks in a row. So I wanted to ask about that Sunday because you opened basically, you opened Sunday the festival, which
I
is
think we did.
that's a big thing to have to do, right? Because
It seems like it.
two parts of it though, right? One is you're coming in, the crowd's kind of cold at that point. They haven't really warmed up yet, so they
That
need
is
someone who's going to bring
correct.
the energy. But the other part I
Sure.
think is that everyone's now got to follow you. And you guys played a set that was just dynamite. Like it was electric. It got everyone warmed up right away. Like we all felt, yeah, we're ready now. Then okay,
Well,
we've
I
started. Oh,
appreciate
we've
that.
started. We're going.
I appreciate that very much. I, it's, I feel like it's the most easy question to answer in the world. Like, why open a festival with a dynamite set? Well, why not? Like, why wouldn't
Yeah.
you open the festival with a dynamite set? Not in that there's any sense of competition, but you definitely want to stand out in some way. And you have an opportunity either right at the very beginning of the festival or right at the very end of the festival to
Yeah.
make that splash. So, if you're not the Wallflowers, shutting the whole thing down, well, what's the next best place to be?
Yeah.
It's possibly at the very beginning. That's what the people who were there to actually, be fans of Tom Petty's music and people who like Tom Petty's music, that's, why they're there that early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a real good answer to to why do that. Um,
Well, tell me
you
about the band then, because I don't know if that's your band or whether it was kind of, a little bit cobbled together because you had a fiddle player, which I don't think you ordinarily do. So tell me about how that came together.
So, and thank you for asking that. It's a confusing relationship
Okay.
with the fiddle as an instrument because we've always had a fiddle player.
Okay.
We've, since Robin Shakedown's first show in Atlanta and in Athens, Georgia, like a couple of years ago, we've always had a fiddle player. And it's so Kevin, you know how Tom Petty's music feels really, really accessible, with the exception of one tiny little gimmick. And I feel like that one tiny little gimmick, whatever it is, it's present in every good song of his, which is
Right.
quite a few of them. It's not just your standard rock and roll. There's like something there, maybe an extra beat somewhere in a measure or an extra
Yeah.
instrument that you weren't expecting to hear. It's always something. And I feel like the fiddle is that addition to Robin Shakedown, and it's always been that addition to Robin Shakedown. So when it came time to bring the band down to Florida, unfortunately, our normal fiddle player could not make it. She was in the middle of moving to Portland.
Okay.
So, we happened to just through, friends and everything, know a vague, collection of fiddle players throughout the Southeast. And one of them was this girl, Laika. And, she normally plays with Sarah in the Safe Word, which is another kind of hard, almost punk, circus punk
Gotcha.
band that plays with a fiddle. And we thought that Lego would totally fit the aesthetic that we're trying to give. So that's how we got a fiddle for that, that particular show. But interestingly enough, I had also never ever played with that drummer or that bassist at those positions before either.
Oh,
So
man.
this was an entirely new band, just based on the fact that timing worked out. My normal band up here in Atlanta was not in commission at the time, so
Right.
we had to kind of hire everybody else on. Um, but when you put in a buttload of preparation and make it look like everything you do is on purpose,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many times you've played with this band before. If everyone is confident enough, at least enough, so the audience doesn't realize that anything is a mistake
Yeah.
ever, then you're in good shape. And I think that's where we were.
I think, and I mean, it kind of leads me to my next point, though. I think that one of the things that helps with that too is if you have a front person, a front woman who commands the attention of the audience, and your presence on stage is, again, it's that, we've also, I mean, I tell this story lots too. The first time I sort of realized, oh, that's a rock star, was when I saw Billy Idol live. And he came out
Okay.
with the short dreads and the no shirt on, velvet pants. I'm like, oh, okay,
Sure.
I get it now. I get it,
Yeah.
So when you come on stage, you've got that same presence that we're all really just kind of, I mean, I'm a drummer, so I'm going to watch the drummer now and again, but we're watching you because
Of course.
and also I was kind of trying to think of a way to put it. And when you watch Shine, she holds a
Yeah.
guitar like a
Oh,
lover. When you hold guitar, sometimes you hold it like a weapon. So it's not exactly my guitar gently weeps. It's more like this machine kills fascists. So it's got that real sort of, I dare you to look away, man. It's got that
I
to it.
like that. I like that. Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I appreciate that a lot.
Okay.
Um, but that is in a lot of ways, being the front woman is my instrument. I'm
Yeah.
not the best guitar player and I'm not the best singer, but when I do the things that I do really, really well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How good I am. It's, you're going to be watching me no matter what.
Well, it's believability, right? I mean, again, it's that thing of, we go back to, when I see Eddie Van Halen saying it's the best gig, but when Sammy Hagar's out there doing his thing and I saw Van Halen with Hagar, you believe every single word that guy says.
Of
You know what I mean?
course.
And when if you're, I mean, Bob Dylan, I mean, who's going to ever say that Bob Dylan's the greatest singer in the world? I love Bob Dylan's voice because he's just sounds like Bob Dylan. He doesn't sound like anyone
He
else.
sounds real.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You believe it. It's like Mike Campbell's dad would say that Johnny Cash sounds like the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like the
Yeah. Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I didn't ask you about that. So Mike Campbell, obviously, you're a guitarist, and wouldn't say that you're not a good guitarist, Robin. You're a good guitar player, and you write interesting parts. But
I
who were
appreciate it.
once you started getting into guitar, then who were the people who you did listen to and sort of look up to?
So I never really got into guitar. I mean, okay,
Okay.
that's not true. I am really into guitar now, but I think I never really got into like any kind of regimented practice with guitar. And I never studied any particular guitar parts other than Tom Petty,
Right.
and Mike Campbell for that matter. And the reason for that is more because I think I'm not into classic rock and I'm not really into music in general.
Okay.
It's a weird thing to admit and it's a weird thing to say, but I think I'm only really into specifically Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' his music.
Right.
And his other side projects as well. So for that reason, I don't have many guitar heroes
Okay.
until very recently. But then again, like very recently, I've decided, hey, I'm going to actually really get into Mike Campbell's guitar parts. So I started listening from the top, from the album from 1976,
Yeah.
slowing every album down to 25% and just listening for the guitar parts until I'm playing them. Mike would do this to Mike Bloomfield and Al Cooper records
Yep.
in the 50s and in the 60s, more in the 60s. And that's really the only way to learn to be a good guitarist. I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, I don't want anybody to say Robin Shakedown is not a good guitarist or Robin Shakedown hasn't put her time in to the game.
Yeah.
I think that's really all I'm striving for. I want to have paid my dues, and that's the only way to do it is to listen and try to imitate the people you love. So
It's a great answer.
Mike Campbell is the answer. Is the answer to that. And of course I'm also into I always forget his name, but the Pretenders' original guitarist.
You've got to be kidding, because I'd written down Pretenders as because I write down who I think has influenced this artist. And
Okay.
100%. Yeah. And I can't think
Yeah.
of his name either.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's three names and it's Lee Honeycutt, Honey something, Honey James Honeyman Smith, something
Yeah.
like that.
Something around there. It's close enough for rock and roll,
It's
right?
close enough. Yes. Exactly.
That's really interesting though, because that's sort of because I want to get into Floor Goddess now, this EP that knocked my socks off. But if you're sort of saying, if you say something as challenging as a musician, you say, I'm not really into music, is that then you've got this sort of creativity that you know is in there and you need to find a medium or a media to get it out? Is it that music feels like the right way as opposed to, painting or poetry or whatever it is? Is that kind of how that lines up for you?
So music really feels like the only one I'm any good at.
Okay.
I've definitely, in the beginning of my life, I would, try to put effort into like summer camps. My mom would send us to like arts and crafts summer camps
Right.
because she knew that, there was some artistry there. But the only thing I was ever just like good at without even really trying was music. So that is, I think music is the only outlet, the only creative outlet that feels not bad.
Right.
I won't necessarily say good all the time because it doesn't always feel good, but it's the only outlet that is consistently there. Whether I'm feeling crappy or I'm feeling fantastic, I can express it somehow through music.
Gotcha.
And that's not something I've ever been able to do with any other kind of artistry. Um, and it's not that I'm not into music. I'm into the feelings that I get when I listen to very specific things and I see
Right.
very specific aesthetics on stage. And I feel a need to reflect those aesthetics. I feel a need to make other people feel the way that I feel when I see
Right.
certain things on stage. Um, and I don't have an explanation as to why, but it's a feeling that I just want other people to feel. Um,
Isn't it
that
lucky? Don't you think though, that, anybody who finds that, it's almost sort of, it is a little bit of luck as well. And there's timing and there's the sort of the application of and knocking the door down and actually walking through it. But so many people, I don't think ever find that way to express themselves and to have that outlet that gets all of the good and the bad, like you said, the good and the bad coming out, and just either the catharsis or the elation of the doing of it. So many people don't
they
ever seem
miss
to have
it.
that.
And they, in that regard, they don't find a meaning for their lives in the same way that a lot of artists
Yeah,
do. And it is a how do you convince somebody that they're missing something in their life if they're
yeah,
not gonna go seek it out? You have to show them.
yeah. Okay, well, Floor Goddess. I was kind of fanboying a little bit offline with you and sort of saying, we need to talk about this album or this EP. I always struggle with EP versus album too. It's an album to me. I'm just going to call it an album because it'll be quicker and easier. But because I was listening to it and sort of the punk aesthetic of it has got, it feels more, and it's funny because with the Brooklyn thing, it feels more New York punk than it feels more Ramones than Clash. It's got
Okay.
more of that edge to it than the Clash. And it's got more Patti Smith and, like I said, a little bit of the Pretenders in there. But it also sounds, it's a marked departure from the two previous albums. So Cartoon Eyes, and I've forgotten the name of the other one. I should have written it down.
The
What was the
other
other?
yeah, the other one is Cartoon Eyes and shoot. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Now I feel
Bullet
better about
Baby.
forgetting.
Bullet Baby.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Uh yeah, no, please go for it.
what I was going to ask was, it almost feels like, your first albums, the first time you get into a studio and you're going to make music, you need a real confidence to say, I want it to sound this way. If you've got a producer or someone saying, well, how about we do it this way? And they've done it before and you're new to the studio. So those songs, I mean, and I bought both on Bandcamp. I love them and they're great.
Thank you for doing that, by the
But
way. That is the best way to
oh,
support
God, you got to
an
support
indie
artists, right?
artist.
You have to support indie artists, yeah. But it feels like it's almost like you're just holding back a little bit of. I don't know if I can quite put all of myself into into the way it sounds. Where Floor Goddess just sounds like, look, this is me, and if you don't like it, you're just gonna have to deal with it because I'm not apologizing for any part of this. It's got that real sort of immediate, important.
Confidence.
Yeah, the confidence is there. Yeah. So is there any part of that that I'm right on, or am I just completely off base?
No, no, you're spot on, of
Okay.
course, with everything. So So the thing is, Robin Shakedown, Robin Vincent is a person, has
Yeah.
existed for 5 years. And about 5 years ago was when those first two EPs also came out. There is a lot of, flux and change happening right in that moment.
Yeah.
And you don't have any idea what things are going to look like. You have, no idea what things are going to sound like. You have no idea really anything about your future. And so in that regard, you need something to ground yourself with.
Right.
And you need some kind of anchor. So I think when I think back to who I was back then, I was someone who was searching for just any kind of grounding or any kind of benchmark that I could just like freeze a snapshot in time and use it as a point of comparison for anything I would become in the future.
Gotcha.
So that is kind of, for better or for worse, it doesn't matter how I personally feel about those albums now, or where they were. They are just really a marker of who I was then, and any kind of difference that you see is the result of very very careful and planned effort in any
Right.
direction that it's moved in. So, uh, yeah, you're building a completely new person when you do something like this, and anything that comes from it is very intentional, and as a result is a lot more confident. So that's where I am with Floor Goddess. I think I'm really not trying to say a lot with the songs. I'm for example, the song Floor Goddess,
Yeah.
it's not really trying to say anything. It's about a dream that I had, in which I got a tattoo that just said Floor
Right.
Goddess. And my bass player, Sophie, also got a tattoo that said Floor Goddess. And I thought, that's cool. What does that mean? And it doesn't matter what it means. It's just cool. So that's, yeah, that's really all that album is trying to be, is cool and show people that, hey, you can go through some shit like this and end up cool.
We talk about the title track though, because again, I mean, it's almost got that kind of that the thing that Bowie would do sometimes, where he would sort of just invent a phrase or like a thing where you think,
Sure.
and as not one of the cool kids growing up, you think, oh, is that just something that all the cool kids know about and I don't know, but I got to find out what he means.
No, no.
So
If you just say it with enough confidence, it's
yes.
cool. That's all. There's no secret.
Oh my goodness. And it's got that song too, again, from sort of the structural standpoint and from a songwriting standpoint, it's interesting because it's almost got like an anti-chorus. The chorus kind of doesn't, it's not a big euphoric break or it doesn't go major key, but it's got this kind of, it pulls you back a little bit. So I kind of like that, the angle that takes that is slightly unexpected.
Okay, that's a good angle to take. It's not one that I've heard before. I think that was, oh my God. Okay, Floor Goddess. I remember specifically that riff that in the chorus, what you're calling an anti-chorus,
Yeah.
was born from Instagram. So there was a challenge where you'd write one riff a day, or you learn one riff a day for the
Okay.
entire month of January of some year. And I did it so that particular chorus has a lot of like slidey stuff up the neck,
Yeah.
and I had never really done that before, that point. And so I kind of wrote that little guitar part as part of One Riff a Day, and that's how that turned into an album. So it was that anti-chorus was just based on a guitar part, I guess. Nothing really deeper than that.
Well, that's funny too, right? Because all musicians do this, right? We've all got our little bin of half-baked ideas or one line or whatever it is. And sometimes when you go back and think, I can use that now. I know where that goes. It's a jigsaw piece. You think, I found a place for you.
Yes, it's all modular. Rock and roll is modular. It's like a
Yeah.
Lego set.
Well, we talked about Wildflowers, right? When you go back and you listen to the home recordings, if you listen to all the rest, and you think, oh, that's where he got that bit, and then he moved.
Yes.
Oh,
He
okay, okay,
moves things over.
yeah,
I think there was a like section of Crawling Back to You on the All the Rest version of Wildflowers that
yeah.
like also you hear at the beginning of It's Good to Be King or something, and it's just like, am I wrong? Am I having a stroke right now? No, this is just how this music was written.
We should say too that the lead song on the album, if there are any sort of doubts about your Petty fandom, we got the title is "Take It on Faith," and that's the line. But it was also Wild Ones was on one of the first EPs. So you get these
That's
little
right.
signposts that, okay, I think this is not just a casual fan we got here. And
I
that's again got
appreciate you hearing that.
a great, fantastic opening riff on that, gets your toes tapping, you know. But then it's almost like, because, okay, I'm going to try and put this. It starts out bright and bouncy, but then when the lyrics come in, it's got that. What I always love, if you can do the light and dark thing in a song where, you know,
Sure.
it's got a real melody or it's got a darker lyric. So, you know, I don't know how to tell you that I just don't know. And that line becomes, well, first of all, there's a great circularity to it because it starts and ends with the same thing, right? It's just
Sure.
poetically, that's kind of satisfying. But
Sure.
then it becomes that mantra because you repeat that line all throughout it. But this song is defined for me by that, the argument, the conversation that's going on in the background. You got
The
to
thing
tell
you're
me what it is.
hearing.
Like, was that
Yes.
planned out? Was it rehearsed?
Okay.
Where does that come from?
So that is all right. So there's a couple levels to that. On the very, very surface, that is just that is myself and Sophie, who I mentioned before. She's the one with whom we got, dream tattoos that said floor goddess.
Right.
We were sitting here in this room and I said, let's have an argument.
Okay.
And I'll put it somewhere on the album because we were just talking about things that could go on the album. So we started yelling back and forth with each other about just, whatever came out. I think we made up this fake scenario whereby we both owned a restaurant. And I was getting so angry at the fact that customers were complaining about the typeface that we're using on the menus.
Right.
And she was saying it doesn't matter, the typeface. We don't even have a restaurant to open. So we were scream yelling with each other just about that. But if you cover it up with enough, saturation and
Yeah.
reverb and stuff, then it just sounds like rage and it
Yeah.
sounds like anger. And that's all I wanted to convey there. And on a deeper level, that song is about trying to justify your identity and trying to justify who you are and realizing that no matter what, people are not going to understand it. If you try, they're
Yeah.
not going to understand it. And so you end up having to just kind of give up and present yourself the way that you are and call it a day and let that be good enough. And that's where that mantra comes from.
Yeah.
I don't know has to be good enough.
I just want to leave a little breathing pause there because that people should digest that because I think that is that's an important thought, right? I mean, especially
It
in today's
is.
world, the idea that anyone should ever question who someone is just so ludicrous that it feels
I
reductive to
understand
even
it
talk about it
though.
in some ways,
And
you know?
like I understand it. Just because I grew up here in Georgia and I grew up in the environment that I grew up in.
Yeah.
So I understand all sides. One side is just uh, it's very, very difficult to justify any kind of hate, obviously. But when society is the way that it is, you have to play the game. And playing the game is, unfortunately, it means assimilating as much as possible. And that also has to be good enough.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right, obviously, but I think that it doesn't mean that we can't still rage against it. You know what I mean? In any way that, and if you do it musically or activism, whatever it might be, it's that thing we can we can accept it, but not accept that we need to. It needs to always be that way, right? We still have to push forward
You do.
through the apathy and get somewhere with it. And you know, not look, I don't usually get all deep on this podcast, but I always felt like about 15 years ago, I thought we've sort of hit that point where I think we're getting the next version of whatever the Enlightenment was back in the 1800s, right? We kind of
Sure.
got there. We
Some kind
seemed
of
to have
big
crested the hill.
social upheaval.
Yeah. And then it just all went to shit in the last
It
12 years. It's
did.
like, what happened? How did this happen? We weren't looking or what? What happened, you know?
Well, yeah, no, the pendulum swung in the other direction.
Yeah.
And that is, unfortunately something that we always see, and you always have to accept it, and you always have to expect it. Or you don't have to accept it, but you do
Yeah.
have to expect it. And it will swing back, and the trust in that is where Oh shit, I could talk about so I've got another song called Shadows and Sun. And I hope you don't mind if I kind of push this for a second.
Of course.
But several years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a big law passed here in Georgia that said it essentially took a whole lot of the healthcare rights away from people under 18 here in Georgia, which sucks if you're under 18 and you know yourself and the people around you don't.
Yeah.
So I wrote a song really quick. It just kind of came in a week and recorded it and put it out, and it's called Shadows and Sun. That is kind of like the, that's how we're using a lot of this, a lot of the situations that we find ourselves in, for the betterment of art and for making this. But now I'm going to get into a little bit of self-plugging here.
That's why we're here.
Tonight, actually, after this interview, we're releasing a music video for an brand new recorded version of that song that
Cool.
that we just finished up with, and I can talk about that at length, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
Hey, no, this is your vehicle to. I want you to promote yourself because, again, you know that feeling when you find someone you latch onto. I just want everyone to know. I want everyone to love this album the same way I do. I want everyone to fall in love with this artist the same way. You know what I mean? Like, so
I
promote away. If
do.
there's anything you want to say, promote away.
So yes, okay. So we have a song out called Shadows and Sun. I just recorded a brand new version of that song. Do you know who Aaron Lee Tasjan is?
I don't.
Aaron Lee
think I do anyway.
Tasjan. He's a great country artist. He would call his you would call it Glamericana. That's what I think you'd call
Okay.
his genre. But he is a good friend who lives in Nashville, who played the guitar solo in the original version of Shadows and Sun. I think of him as a super influential guitarist. So, to answer your question from earlier, Aaron Lee Tasjan is a really, really great, instrumentalist who I look up to. So for the new version of Shadows and Sun, I wanted to re-record everything myself. So
Okay.
I learned how to play this solo that I thought was extremely technical at one point, and I played it for the new version, Kevin. And I feel I wanted to plug that as well. But thank you. Thank you for letting me plug that.
Was that it? So when you got that though, when you sort of learned that part, was like,
It was
shit, yeah, I
great.
got
It
it. Yeah.
felt great. It's all I want to feel in life. It's the only sense of satisfaction that I get, and I love it. I love it.
Let's talk about Scatterbrain.
Yes.
Because I'd written down like if you released this, if this came out in 2005, we wouldn't be on a podcast right now because you'd be on a podcast talking to someone
Oh my
entirely different.
gosh.
Because it's got that kind of, you
I'm
know,
just 20 years too late.
yeah, but it's got that post-grunge indie. If this was a Weezer song, you'd totally buy it because it's got that kind of rhythm and flow to it, but it's
Sure.
defined by you just spit those vocals out. Left it in the back seat and you punch that B and the CK on that word, right? So it's got that energy to it. It's just again, it's just I'm going to use the word compelling so often in this conversation, but
Oh,
tell
I
me about that song.
appreciate that. Yeah, so that is exactly what I'm going for in that song. People only really, listen to a song and believe it during the really, really high parts or the really, really low parts.
Yeah.
I found, people only, they only believe your lyrics when you believe the shit out of them, or when you believe them so when you don't believe them so much that you sing them and it sounds like extra sarcastic. That's
Right.
another reason, for people to listen to a song. So that song I wrote when I was listening to a lot of Cat Power.
Okay.
And I loved, like I said earlier, I listen to artists in order, like in chronological order. And I find what that does is it gives me permission to do a lot of the things that I see artists grow over time with. So, for example, Cat Power, I remember during my deep dive of her music, the first two albums didn't really have the concept of verses and choruses. They were
Right.
just like endless trains of thought. Like it was her with some kind of guitar going into a big muff, and it just sounded so seething. And it wasn't until like the third or fourth album that you get the first song with like a verse and a chorus. And so you can see this development of her as an artist over time, and you see her, incorporate things into her music. Like maybe she's got this, one song late on down the line that's just like a 1 followed by a 5 followed by a 1 followed by a 5 followed by a 1, and then it just repeats it like 10 times. That's so simple, but if Cat Power's doing it, it gives me permission to do it too.
Right.
So when I'm listening to people like Cat Power and I hear a song like Scatterbrain, I write Scatterbrain. And that is kind of where I'm at, like in a lot of my songwriting process now. I'm listening to people who I look up to and want to sound like. And when I can find permission to do it, when I can see someone who I really respect to do it and say, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, then that's kind of where a lot of my songwriting prowess comes from these days.
That's awesome.
So I think I heard something grungy in Cat Power, and I said, I want that in my music. I want to prove to the world that can be me as well.
What I love about it though is because it's got that, it does have that grungy, the sort of fuzzed out overdrive. It's got that kind of that feel to the guitar tone, but when you sing "I'm a little scatterbrain," it's almost like you pull it back to being sort of like an 8, 9-year-old girl apologizing for forgetting to let the dog out again. It's got that, and I love that it's not an adjective. It's not scatterbrained. It's scatterbrain until it
I'm
isn't,
glad you
which you
heard
flip
that
it. So
too.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you paid attention to that as well. And that again, it goes back to people only listen when you're either super super into it or super super pulled back from it.
right.
And so I'm trying to kind of juxtapose those two extremes and make people listen to it. So I'm glad that you heard that.
Yeah,
I'm
this
very
is what I do,
glad.
right? Just a massive, big old music nerd, and I enjoy.
You are very good at it.
Okay, thank you. But there's another line there too. The pills are meant to help, but I'm kind of inconsistent in that verse where you drop that REM line in as well. Everybody, you've got the Everybody Hurts reference. So,
Absolutely.
and then you flip then it is scatterbrained, and then it flips again. So, again, I think that it sort of speaks that attention to detail, right? And this is what, as Petty fans, and when you really dive into his music, there's so much of that. There's so many things where, well, it would be easy just to repeat that again, or it would be easy to just leave that to be the chorus riff. But
Yeah.
like you said, we're going to bring in just a little organ or a
Just a
little piano
little
or
gimmick.
something. Yeah,
A little tiny flip the script
yeah,
and make people listen and make people question. And you as an artist don't even have to have a reason why.
yeah,
Like I don't even know exactly why I do a lot of the songwriting, that I do. But when you do it consistently in a certain way, people question why, and
yeah.
that can be used to help you.
And it's also got, we talk about little moments, and so it's got that cool retro synth tag right at the end. Just sort of comes out of nowhere, and it's got that synth tone throughout, but then it just takes over at the end. It's just that nice little, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that.
So thank you. I took that from Ezra Furman. I'll plug another artist.
Okay.
Ezra Furman just released an album this year called oh shoot, I can't even remember the name of it. But yeah, another artist who I really respect incorporated synths into her music
Yeah.
this year. And so that gives me permission to incorporate synths into my music. That's just kind of I don't know why it's a permission thing, but
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I think though that when you get into that mode as a songwriter, you shouldn't ever question that. I don't think, right? Because if it's working, just ride it. If you think of it as permission and you think of it that way, if it's working, don't fuck with it. Just leave it.
Exactly. And I don't know, it's hard for me to get to that place in my mind.
Right.
So when I hear other people doing it, it helps a lot.
Okay, drag queen. This is
Drag queen, yeah.
this
Yeah.
one again. It's got such a great pop groove to it, but it's such an it's an upsetting lyric in the way that I hate bullies, and I hate that sense that someone will be so goddamn mean to someone and say
Sure.
hurtful things. But again, you've
Sure.
laid it over top of this big happy. So
Yes,
what
it's
what
the
does this one come from?
juxtaposition. It's the
Yeah,
juxtaposition of, something that sounds innocent and something that sounds, oh my God, well, like what was that lyric that you just said? That's
yeah,
ridiculous. Um, so that comes from just, the uh the difference in between trans and drag culture.
Right.
There's it's a difference that is extremely important to take a look at and to examine if you're going to be considering yourself an ally in any sense of the word. And I think it's fairly clear. I don't know what really needs to be said about it beyond
Yeah.
one of them is an art form and one of them it's a life. It's a way of life. And one of them is a choice and the other is not. And that's the crux
Yeah.
of where that comes from.
Yeah, but it's, I was going to say too, though, that one of the things I love about that song too is that after you've punched that, first of all, your friends all think I'm a drag queen. I think your friends are a drag. Is one of the, it's like the riff in You Wreck Me. You think, well, how the hell's no one come up with that before? Because it's so good, but it's there. You think it's
It's
always
there. It
been there.
was
Why has no one
right
noticed this
there.
before?
I thought about it and I thought to myself, why hasn't anyone? I thought exactly that thing. Like, I better be quiet about this. I better not say anything. And I'm sure there it's been used in a million other songs, but like I've not heard them.
No, neither have I. But then, so after that though, then you get that ooh na na na. So it's almost like it's that bit, right? That portion to me is like screw you. 'Cause it's that little kind of throwaway. I don't care. Like nah, 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 nah. It's got that quality to it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's the juxtaposition that I keep on going back to. You
yeah,
know, people listen if it's nice and happy and people listen if it's seething. And if you put them right next to each other, then people listen double hard.
yeah. And then you swing the bridge as well. There's a little bit of swing in the bridge, which we don't get around. So again, just little movements within the song that just keep, little nerds like me happy. Okay, I've been dying to get to this one. Let's talk about I Hate You because for me, this is, like I said, I love this album and I love all the songs on it. But when I got to this one, this was sort of like it's that moment where you think, just holy shit, because that song's got so much weight to it and it sort of, it presses down on you in a way that puts you in a space to really sort of think about what is she singing about here? Like this is because, and again, you do the petty thing where you keep it really sort of universal, where I hate you is such a specific thing to say, and you can say it to someone else, or you can say it to yourself. And I think the power of not defining that and not being prescriptive about what you mean with it gives this song again just that enigmatic power that the truly great songs have. And I will say this: I think this is a great, great, great song. It's so good on this album, and it's in track 5. So you've had this journey through a lot of pop melodies and sort of little punk things, and then we get this thing that doesn't sound like anything else that comes out of
Oh,
nowhere.
shucks, Kevin. I appreciate that. I'm actually interested in what is your relationship with it when you hear. And this probably sounds really, vain and full of myself as an artist, but what does the song mean to you,
Yeah.
Kevin?
Okay. So, and first thing I would say is that I'd go and I sort of tend to align with Bob Dylan sometimes, but I don't always want to know what a song's about. There's a song by REM called "Belong" off "Out of
Okay.
Time" is one of my favorite REM songs, and I've never looked at the lyrics of that song, and I know roughly what he's singing, but I don't really want to know because the emotion of it, and it's the same with "Mercy Street" by Pete Gabriel. The emotion of it and the way it makes me feel, that's enough, and that's important. That you know
That's
what I mean?
important. Yeah.
So what this song feels like to me is, I was an outsider growing up. I wasn't, I didn't know who I was. I sort of wasn't any part of any of the cool groups. I had good friends, close friends, but I never really felt, I didn't know where I fit in the world. You know what I mean? I
Sure.
was talking to you about this. I don't know. But that song, if I'd had that when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, I think that would have got me through, my mum and dad getting divorced because I think it would have vocalized and externalized all that shit that's going on inside that I'm trying to process. And I think that, again, because you have that universality in this song, I think that any teenager or anyone who's going through that struggle with a sense of self or uncertainty about the world or anxiety, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
that's something that you can just, that's what I want to say. That's what I mean. That's how I feel. So it's a feel song, and there's tons to talk about in terms of lyrics and structure and those hat lifts that I just love, but the feel of it is just sort of, yeah, I wish I'd had this when I was a kid, man. You know?
Yeah, no, I hear that and I'm really, really glad to hear you say that. Yeah, that song is it started out originally, it was turned inward. It was very much a lot of just self-doubt manifesting itself. You wake up sometimes and the only thing that you can see in yourself is what you think others see in yourself. I think the morning I wrote that song, I was trying to get, I remember this. Okay. I was trying to get the band together, up in the studio where we were doing a lot of the recording at the time. And, nobody was texting me back. And that was making me very frustrated.
Yeah.
And, when you put as much kind of self-worth into the stuff that you're doing as I do, and as I did then, you base a lot of who you are on other people's perceptions of you. So it was me like telling myself that I hated myself
Yeah.
for trying to make other people come and, be a burden and come and meet and practice and record. But saying it out loud allowed me to direct it at whatever I was mad at whatever, moment in time for any
Yeah.
time that we play that in the future. And in fact, I remember we played this house party a couple of years ago, and the drummer who I was playing with at the time and I were having a falling out. And as we were playing this house party and this song, which I think ended up being the last song that we ever played together,
Okay.
I remember keeping this image in my head of just like all of the shit that was going on in my life that made me mad and that made me just want to like
Yeah.
just lash out. And that's kind of how I make anything believable. Is I think back to, all right, I think of a way that I can apply the feelings I'm trying to express in lyrics to a thing that I'm currently going through, whether or not it was, originally meant that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, job done because, and again, that last sort of scream on that last line, because it clips, you're pushing so much signal through the mic that
Absolutely.
it's clipping, but that becomes
By
an important,
design.
yeah, of course. Yeah. But yeah, I was going to say because I always like talking about production too. And there's another artist who this album kind of reminds me a little bit of Amelia McLean. She's kind of a new artist, but she's kind of like indie pop, dark indie
Amelia
pop.
McLean,
Amelia,
I
you should,
see.
I'll send you a link
Yeah,
to her
please.
album. I think you'd enjoy it, but her stuff is like super, super, super polished. Like it's very, very densely layered and produced something else. And so when people talk about sort of production, I think sometimes if I say that your album's got edges, it's parts of the pages are a little bit torn still,
Supposed to
and
be
your
frayed.
vocal isn't always absolutely dead on pitch. And it's not meant to be,
It's
and
not
that
supposed to
scream at the
be.
end. So because that's otherwise it wouldn't work. You
Because
just
it's rock and roll.
yeah,
It's not supposed to be pop music,
yeah,
Kevin. It's supposed to be like, rock and roll is
yeah.
supposed to have an attitude, and rock and
Of
roll is
course,
supposed to make you feel like a human, not
yeah.
like a machine.
Well, I was listening to Blonde on Blonde, Bob Dylan's Unbelievable on Blonde on Blonde, and you listen to that and you think, yeah, man, you can tell that they've turned up at the studio and Dylan's not really told them what this song is yet, so
Absolutely.
they're just trying to keep up. But
Sure.
that's why it's got that energy that just is like so
It's
invigorating, right?
why
And
it's got
again,
that allure.
yeah, which is this album has the same thing. So it was a compliment that maybe came off
Oh
sounding like
no,
we were doing a
no, no.
criticism song.
I completely took that the way that it
Good,
was meant to
okay.
be given. Absolutely. No, in fact, I think that is the direction I'm trying to move, cuz like, the first the first I think 4 or 5 Petty albums, they were all recorded essentially live in the studio.
Yeah,
The overdubbing was kept to a minimum, and that is the way to record rock and roll music. And
yeah,
if I had all of the resources that, Denny Cordell gave them
yeah,
at the beginning with Shelter Records, I would also record that way.
yeah,
But unfortunately, when I'm recording here, I've got, 4 inputs, I've got a bunch of guitars, and I've got 1 drum set.
yeah.
And it's all I can do. But I do appreciate the rough around the edges approach to recording.
Well, it's that thing that it's like good comedians, right? Good comedians they rehearse and they know exactly where because comedy is very musical. They know where the beats
It
are. They
is.
know what the timing is. So when it looks like they're ad-libbing and they're not, that's
That's when it's
that
the
takes a
best. That's
skill.
when the magic
Yeah.
happens. It really
And it's the same
does.
with rock and roll, right? If you build that, if it's a feature, not a bug, well, then it's
Sure.
just like, yeah, this is the way it should be. So, misread the room. Let's talk about this one.
Mm,
Again, you give us sort of after the weight and that sort of that pressure that we get, and again, at
yes.
5 minutes too. Sorry, I'm just going to go back to this one again, but you could make an argument. Anybody would, a pop producer would say, well, you could probably trim a minute off that. You could probably cut that down. You could
You
fade it
most
early,
likely
whatever,
could.
right?
We
Right.
probably could.
But at 5 minutes, I think it needs that length because it, it's got enough weight to support that length, and the ending again with those hat lifts and it's mixed so high. I can't get over how good those hats sound. Anyway, but
Well, thank you.
it's got that weight to it. Then again, when we switch into Misread the Room, you give us that relief. So we get this. It's almost like more of a kind of got that Sheryl Crow kind of got a bit more of an upbeat to it. It's got the folky thing, So
It
it's letting us off the
is.
hook a little bit.
It is. So that one is probably actually the one with the most literal meaning behind it.
Okay.
Misread the Room was born from a friend of ours who was in a relationship with another friend of ours, and by ours I mean myself and my fiance.
Yeah.
We kind of all had this big main friend group a couple of years ago. And it turns out that one of the members of this friend group was extremely kind of toxic and abusive. And I don't like to use the word toxic because it can mean anything these
Yeah.
days. But like was manipulative, I should say, emotionally, just manipulative in this relationship. Um, and unfortunately, the person who was being manipulated in this relationship was of the opinion that she had to move away from Atlanta and therefore move away from all of, this life that she had set up. So she
Yeah.
moved to Chattanooga, which is a great place to be.
Oh, wow.
And we get to go visit all the time and it's fantastic. But it felt like a a faulty sense of self-worth led to misreading the room and assuming that you would not be welcome here
Yeah.
around your friends and having to go and restart your entire life because of something entirely preventable.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that came from.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that one was the most quickly kind of done one.
Okay.
I think I taught the band that one in an afternoon, and then we were in the studio already, so we just recorded it right there. Which is why it went so long. Nobody knew how to end it. It's like I want to say, "Welcome to the Jungle." Uh, the song I'm talking about,
Yeah.
where it's yeah.
Yeah. But there's also at the end of it it's got that you don't come around here no more, like the double time thing that Mike does to lead into.
Yes,
And I didn't catch that until like the fifth or sixth time. I'm like, hang on a minute. So I skipped it
that
back. I'm like,
comes exactly from
oh,
there.
that's so cheeky.
Absolutely,
I loved
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, anything you can steal from Mike Campbell
Yeah,
and
of
get away
course,
with, steal from Mike Campbell and get away with it.
yeah. We should say too that Chattanooga, I've never been there, but my God, that's a
It's
fun word to say.
really beautiful. No, it is a fun word to say, and there's a lot of words up there that are super fun to
Right.
say. The river that goes through Atlanta is called the Chattahoochee, and
Yeah.
that's a great word too. Sometimes I'll just wake up and say Chattahoochee a couple of times,
What's
and I think it's an Alan Jackson song too.
great song too. Well, and
It is.
the Chattanooga Choo Choo, Andrew's sisters.
And the
Probably great
Chattanooga
too,
Choo
so, yeah.
Choo, yeah, it's a venue up there.
Is it really?
It's a concert venue now.
Ah, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything must change. I'm a different kind of person every time I come to Nashville.
Yeah, I think this one kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I think. But I wanted to write a song that just started with something that sounds really classic and then build it from there.
Yeah.
And saying I'm a different kind of person every time I come to Nashville, that there's so much that can be said there. There's so much like meaning that can be packed. So it just kind of went from there. I think the first verse, the second verse, and the third verse are about three different people in my life.
Okay.
One of them is an old band member of mine One of them is somebody I met on Instagram, and then one of them is an old romantic flame who I had many, many years ago.
Okay.
And I think these were just like the first three people who I thought of whose stories and how they related to my life could be kind of reduced down and not reduced, but kind of consolidated down
Yeah.
into a couple of couplets and turn that into a classic sounding country song.
Yeah.
I love when songs are organized and packaged together really, really tightly so you can bring them to a honky-tonk jam and everybody knows how to play it.
Well, because it's alt country turned up to 11, right, when it starts. But then when it comes in, then you get that little bit of that sort of punk aesthetic and plenty of rock
Sure.
and roll in there because you got the berry bends that guitar is doing sort of
Yeah,
right in the middle, right? So you throw in
absolutely.
the kitchen sink at it.
Sure. If you make it, you keep it to a blues, keep it to a country form, but let yourself let loose. It's all just tricking audiences into thinking that you're a better musician than you are.
But well, the one last little trick you do though too, right, is you don't end on the root. So you don't let us off completely easy. We don't
Exactly.
get that complete
Exactly.
resolution at the end. So,
I learned that from Radiohead.
At least you didn't lift the Radiohead chords though. You didn't do that anywhere on the album.
That's
So
true. That's true.
which isn't the Radiohead chord. I'm still mad at those guys because that's the Hollies. The Hollies
They-
did that first in the Creep chord progression. It's
Yeah.
the air that I breathe by the Hollies is what that song is. So
I mean, well, it was also not the Hollies who, pioneered that chord progression. I imagine. I'm sure it all came from spiritual. I'm
it's
sure
probably Bach. Everything came
probably
from Bach, right?
everything came from Bach. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Okay, look, this has been an absolute joy. It's been a blast.
Kevin, thank you so very much. I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to talking to you in the future.
Yeah, so tell people where they can find Floor Goddess, what's coming up. You
So-
said you got a new single coming out. Tell people
I
what's coming up.
do. So, Floor Goddess is the new record from Robin Shakedown, which is my band, Robin Shakedown. You can find us on all of the streaming services on Instagram at robin.shakedown. It's kind of where I do most of my social media presence on Instagram these days. We just put out an album called Floor Goddess, and tomorrow, which by the time you hear this, it'll be a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, we just put out a music video for our song Shadows and Sun. So go to our Instagram or our YouTube and find that. Robin Shakedown, Shadows and Sun. Kevin, thank you so very much for the opportunity. It's great to hear from you and great to talk to you.